Well, look who has turned up at the last video store. It's you, the dear listener or viewer of the program. My name is Alexei and I'm the host of this show where we talk to interesting people about their favorite movies. On the show this week, we have got one of the members of Confidence Man. We've got Sugar Bones on the podcast. Now, producer Emmeline, you are a big Confidence Man fan as well as I.
Huge fan.
Yeah.
Big fan.
What do you reckon about Confidence Man? Tell us about them.
I think they're kind of trailblazers.
They are, right?
Dare I say it?
I
Yeah.
dare say it, and dare I co-sign it? I dare co-sign it.
They're doing something so interesting that I don't think is happening much in Australia right now in music, which is these fantastic live shows, really interesting music and visuals. And it's no wonder that they have kind of blown up overseas and now Australia is catching on and being like, yeah, they're actually great.
And it's this high energy, super fun, like dance music, dance pop that you kind of like don't really associate with Australian music scene very much.
Yes.
So it feels very fresh and vibrant, and it's kind of towing the line between mainstream and alternative in a really cool way as well.
I agree. Yeah, they are. They're really like making waves. And like I said, trailblazer, just like you, a white guy in podcasting talking about movies.
Well, I'm actually Greek and fat, so so that's something a little different, you know?
Wait.
A little something different, a little spicy, if you will.
That's
and that
true,
spice
I'm
is
sorry.
oregano. Well, you know, what we're going to be talking to Sugar Bones about is his favorite films. He's going to talk about a new release film, to his favorite weekly titles, and then I will give him a recommendation based on his taste. And if you want that combo, if you want a recommendation from me unto you as well, all you need to do is message us in at the show via Apple Podcasts, via rating. Give us 5 stars on Apple Podcast review. I'll give you one of those. You put it in your thing, or you can do it on a message. You can do it on a comment on YouTube, that kind of thing. And we've got a couple of good YouTube comments coming in today, right?
Yes, we do.
Or just one. I
Or
said a
just
couple.
one.
I only want to hear one.
We've had a couple, but we're only going to read. We're going to read one today. So this one is from Dominic. Dominic probably is another way of saying that name.
I'll say Dom. G'day, Dom.
Tom. Thanks, Alexei, for delivering the best podcast about movies.
Wow. It's written in my voice as well somehow.
Yes. You're a welcome delight to have in my ear holes.
Oh, gorgeous. Thank you. I love hanging out in them.
And I hope this comment finds you well. And if you have the time, I would love to gush over a recommendation.
Well, it found me well. Allow the gushing to begin.
My recent release is Spaceman 2024.
Adam Sandler movie. Did you see that? You're a big Adam Sandler guy.
I haven't seen it yet. I'm
Whoa,
behind.
my
I'm behind.
God.
I
Well,
mean,
I can't believe you, of all people, haven't seen Adam Sandler Does Solaris.
I know. I really should be like the day it's released, like ready to go.
Yeah, it's whack, dude.
Is
You got to
it?
see this. Yeah, it's cool. It's literally Adam Sandler in Solaris.
That is so cool.
I don't know. I want to hear your thoughts on it. I want to share
Okay,
mine.
maybe I have to report back.
Uh-huh.
My favourite films, this is Dom again,
Thank
not
you,
me,
Dom. Yes.
are Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou
Steve Zissou, yeah.
and The Thing 1982.
Thing 1982, one of my... I love these movies. Great choices. Spaceman, I'm a little weird on. I really want to see it again, but I'm jumping off The Thing here and maybe a little bit of fun of Zissou as well. I just saw this movie. It's called Slash Back. And there's a slash in between slash and back as well. Slash back. Which is 2022 horror film. It's an independent Inuit teenage girl take on Carpenter's The Thing. Which I found completely enjoyable. Very fun, intuitively effective, low-budget practical effects horror. Some good SFX, like digital tinkering to it as well. I think a really good horror film, especially if you've got kids, like you want to introduce kids to some horror. Great setting as well. But it's like, it really is like a teenage girl version of The Thing in a fun
love
way.
that.
Yeah, it's
That's
very
so cool.
Yeah, very cool. And you don't see many horror films from like that perspective. It's an Inuit film. Like, that's cool.
We need to start getting some feedback from people who have been recommended films, our
Yes.
fans, and we need to know if they like the films you've recommended.
What if he goes, I hated it, and now I don't listen to the podcast anymore?
We've lost a listener.
I don't want to lose Dom. I don't want to lose
that's-
Dom.
No. I want listeners to get back in touch with us and let us know, did you like the film that Alexei recommended?
Well,
But only if you did like it.
well, I would say this. We're about to go into our chat with Sugar Bones from Confidence Man, and we just just recorded it. We just got out of the recording, and I freaking nailed a staff pick recommendation.
did.
So I do suspect he got a pen and paper and started writing things down when I was talking.
Yeah, that was great.
So I do think we'll hear back from Sugar Bones pretty soon about some new flicks he's got into his life.
Yes, I've actually got to start rounding up past guests and getting them to return the movies.
I know. Our freaking stocks are low.
I
The
know.
shelves are empty.
That's what happens when you just give out DVDs to everyone that comes in.
We got to get a vigilante out there.
Yes.
We got to hire someone to go out there and start getting these freaking movies back from all these guests.
Yeah.
So far, Cameron James is the only one returned anything, dudes.
Your best friend
My
is
best
the only
friend.
one.
He's the only one. Who's next? Zach Ruane, my other friend? Demi Lardner? All the people that I are close friends with? We got to get freaking George Miller to come back.
Give it back, George.
All right, well, let us get into our chat with Confidence Man's Sugar Bones.
The last video store.
Well, Sugar Bones, thank you for joining me inside the last video store. It is my pleasure to have you in here. I want to also ask you right away, your new album, 3 a.m., in brackets, La La La. The cover for this album, this evokes cinema to me, especially cinema of my youth, which I call like the millennium mindfuck era of cinema, which is stuff like The Matrix, Dark City, all of those kind of vibes.
Yeah.
Is that something that you were conscious of like evoking with that cover?
You know, like we weren't doing that consciously, but now that you say Matrix, Dark City, like, yeah, you can totally see it. And I think like we just naturally tend to go for a cinematic kind of vibe most times. So like, yeah, it makes sense that, all these movies have rubbed off on me somehow.
Wow, that's not quite PG if movies are rubbing off on you, but at least it's coming out of something exciting.
Yeah, maybe some of the MAs or, the Rs or whatever.
So can you tell me a little bit about like the style of this album, like what you're kind of going for with it?
Well, I guess like we didn't really have like a super clear intention that we sort of said out loud, but I think just from years of making music together and sort of evolving as a band, like we were sort of at a point where we knew what we wanted, and that was basically just sort of like high energy, and maybe a little darker than like the previous stuff we've done. But yeah, basically just kind of like pushing it still into all those worlds that we've been trying to, catch. And I think on this one, we actually like managed to like really find the sweet spot. So yeah, it was nice. It was such a good process because we all just kind of knew what we wanted.
And it's so interesting because I think that you're able to really match like an oral or a sonic aesthetic with like a visual aesthetic with your work. Can you kind of tell me about how those kind of grow together, how those evolve together, or do you ever feel like they're in juxtaposition to each other?
Oh, well, I think having this kind of strong visual like base to start with sort of must affect us a bit when we're making the music, and then once the song's made, like that kind of spurs on the visual. So they're always kind of like feeding off each other and inspiring each other.
And with the difference between like studio and live, how do those inform each other as well?
Well, I think like the live show, like we always kind of, alter tracks slightly to like add in parts of dances or gags that we're trying to do. And I think
because it's a real like experience, like your live shows, like it's like so high energy and like so party.
Yeah, so like I think just sort of the songs always end up accommodating the live aspect a little bit, and that'll be like extending sections to like add some drama in a certain spot, or like cutting out a chorus to get something quicker. So like there's always the recorded version and then the live version, which will like alter a little bit.
Do you think does it continually evolve for you as like the live shows keep going? Do the songs change for you, or the presentation of those change as the tour continues?
Yeah, like we're often like we sort of rehearse it in this like dance studio a bit, just Janet and I, and then we do 1 or 2 rehearsals with the band. We're kind of lazy with the rehearsals.
We got to keep it fresh somehow, right?
You don't want to burn
laziness
out.
can be a charm in
You
itself.
don't want to be sick of it by the time you're up there. So we often sort of like tweak it and tailor it as we go along, and that can happen for like years. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Well, I reckon it's time that I'm going to send you out through the store. I want you to peruse the shelves, make some discoveries, look around, if you will, go to the ground, go to the top of the shelf, whatever you need to do. Come back, we'll talk about some of your favorite movies, brother.
Okay, perfect.
New release.
All right, let us get into it straight away,
Sweet.
dude. Because you have got a hot and glowing new release sitting atop of this stack, man. This is a film that I think has taken the world by storm this year. One of the most exciting films to enter the realm this year. You have got The Substance.
Yes.
Horror.
It's just sort of, sweeping the world right now, and for good reason. It just kind of knocks you in the face and you fall over for a while, and then you get back up and walk out of the cinema, and you feel a little different.
Oh, truly you do, man. Like, I saw this film at the Sydney Film Festival. It was their closing night film, which is rare for a closing night film at Sydney Film Festival to be something so whack and wild, but also quite provocative. And my friends literally had someone next to him puke onto him and then pass out onto him as well. And a week ago, I was at a cinema. I wasn't seeing The Substance. I was wandering around the multiplex, and I saw a guy on the ground, paramedics surrounding this guy, blood pouring down the side of his head. No shit, blood was pouring down the side of his head. And I asked someone what happened. He said he fainted during The Substance. And they had to drag him out of the cinema.
See, that's the 5-star review you need right there. Like, just blood pouring out of people all around you. Like, that's what it does.
That's it, man. And it's kind of like this. My friend put it really well. My friend Zachary Wayne, who's a former customer of this podcast as well, he put it really best. Where he was surprised that it was less David Cronenberg, The Fly, or Videodrome, body horror, and more in that trauma, Toxic Avenger kind of nasty, silly kind of body horror.
Yeah.
How did the horror elements work for you?
Well, I think that's something really interesting about it, was that it could have just been this kind of straight body gore kind of, it's almost like B-movie kind of style, everything over the top film. But then it had this really beautiful kind of a really sort of strong message at the core of it. And then also this kind of beautiful silliness and absurdity that runs throughout it, which at times was I was laughing out loud sort of thing. And you almost feel bad in the middle of that film, laughing out loud, but I think it wants you to do that and sort of smash those things together. And it did that really well.
That's it. Yeah. It does it really well. It really provokes you to feel this full spectrum of feelings while putting you on this really entertaining ride. And I think part of that is it has this really hard aesthetic that kind of exaggerates the horror, exaggerates the humor of it all. It's kind of got this West Coast or Miami hyperwave commercial summer feeling that I think just sets it into this tone where you never feel like you're watching a reality. You never have that grounded sense of reality, but it grounds you in the emotions of the character and the thematic feelings of what they're communicating. And I always think of horror as working in waves, where you kind of see what was been happening in the world 2 years before the film came out. And right now we're in this little wave, this little cycle of horror films, especially from America, dealing with female bodily autonomy. You've got definitely this film as an example of that. You've got Immaculate with Sydney Sweeney. You've got The First Omen. There's all these films that are working through those kind of feelings. I think that is what this film does so well. It's got all of that, but then this candy, crazy aesthetic that just works so well, bring it all together.
Yeah, I love things that just sort of have that sort of contrast, and when they kind of rub up against each other, that's when you get that magic, because it's pushing this sort of portrayal of perfectionism and beauty, and then the horror and the blood and the pain and violence that comes with that. And so when you tee them up together perfectly, it's like that scene where she's there, like, pulls out the tooth, and like
Oh.
it's just, like that's the perfect sort of friction.
And I gotta say, like, that Demi Moore performance is something quite special. I mean, you've already been talking about how you're of that VHS DVD era where she was like a bit of a true icon of that time, like one of the great movie stars. What's it like seeing her in this kind of mode now?
I think it's great just seeing her back on the screen, and like, just an amazing, amazing performance. Just sort of magnetic, and it's interesting because you don't even really think about it, but the whole film is basically just like two characters, and then two like locations, pretty much like the apartment and studio, and then you got the two leads, and like somehow just becomes this entire world, and it's just a testament to their performances because there's not a whole swath of cast and crazy adventurous plot that they're going off and doing things. It's just in this very sort of claustrophobic world, and it lets you like really get in there because of the performances.
And I think you're right. It's like those performances, especially the contrast between Margaret Qualley and Demi Moore, who are playing, I guess, two sides of the same coin or something, two versions of it. Even the way that the world around them is presented feels different. It's like so much of the Demi Moore character is like just absolutely drowned in shadow and darkness. And then you've got the Margaret Qualley, which is these bright, bursting, shining lights on everything. The other thing that I thought when I was watching this film was I didn't really know much about it going in, apart from like the subgenre and the cast. Didn't really know much about it. But within a few minutes of seeing this film, I was like, this other movie kept on coming into my head, this film called Revenge that I'd seen almost a decade ago at a film festival. I just loved this film. And it just kept on coming to my head. And I go, what if this is the same director? This might be the same director. I've wanted to see a follow-up film by them. As soon as I leave the cinema, it's the first thing I look up, and it was Coralie Faget, who is the director of Revenge. And if you've not seen Revenge and you love the substance, another huge recommendation because it's using a lot of those same elements, but this time the subgenre is like rape revenge films. And now it's kind of, but also told through this highly stylized aesthetic. I just think she is a true force for the future of horror cinema now.
Amazing. Yeah, I think, was that like not like kind of recent, that Revenge film? Or was that like from a while back? Because I remember seeing
I think
one.
Only a few years, like 5 years maybe.
And like she falls off the cliff and then...
That's the one.
That was a good film, yeah. And it's
film.
definitely similar vibe. The just kind of like surreal, sort of over the top aspect, which I think is just like a really clever way to sort of like push these, issues which are not so lighthearted.
Yeah, beautifully put, and a great pair of films to put together. And because I recognise within 10 minutes it was the same director, we have the birth of an auteur that I'm calling right now. That is an auteur, if you can tell them within minutes. It's the same thing without knowing anything about the film.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Weekly.
All right, well, brother, let us get into your weekly choices now. We have got a true classic. I reckon let's begin with an adaptation of one of the probably seminal texts for all teenagers that have to watch it. A great way to get teenagers into this. From Baz Luhrmann and Billy Shakespeare. It is Romeo plus Juliet.
Yeah.
Drama.
I mean, like, I remember watching this the first time. I probably would have been about, I don't know, 12, something like that. Probably just starting to get these feelings more and, like just loving love and the idea of it. And then, you're forced to read lots of Shakespeare when you're young at school in our world. And I was quite into it already. But then seeing it in that format sort of smashed together with this kind of high and low art, sort of absolutely smashing the idea of that away, and making it sort of so visually just grabbing you and pulling you in like that with all the amazing writing. It was just like, it totally blew my mind and I was just obsessed. And especially like also just like the story itself, like it is just one of like the greatest sort of like setup for a love story ever. And like I don't know if anyone will ever beat it really. So it was like seeing this kind of like archetypal love story in like full color was just absolutely like mind blowing, and I was obsessed from the moment I saw it.
It's a great way to awaken those kind of like dusty old texts that sometimes is prescribed text, or sometimes, I'd say often, when you're in school
Definitely.
studying these things,
Yeah,
often maybe even still shortchanging it.
Yeah.
How dusty they can feel and how irrelevant they can feel to you. But I think you put it so nice. Like, this is such a great way to awaken those texts for young people, where it is about the love, and it cinematically enhances that moment of love, like that lightning bolt moment where you see Claire Danes and Leonardo DiCaprio when they meet and see each other for the first time.
Yeah, and they've got the little fish tank.
Oh man, it's like a great art house moment. Like, you've gorgeous, and it like it cinematically awakes that for you, so you feel it. It's not just words on a page. It's not just like two weird iambic pentameter performances. Like, that grounds it in the moment of what it feels like to fall in love with someone, not in reality, but in a movie. But in also the way it feels to fall in love with someone when you're a teenager, feeling it for the first time. Like, it just captures that so well.
Yeah, totally. And like that's, you know, at that age, like everything just seems so dramatic. And I remember like crying for like 2 days when like my grade 6 girlfriend broke up with me. And like, you know, like it's just, you're so in that. Well, I was anyway. I think a lot of people are, but maybe not everyone. But like you just kind of get a bit obsessed with like love, and it all seems so exciting and dramatic and just life or death kind of thing.
I think high school stories are things that do that because, you know, when you are a kid, it's the first time you're ever feeling these feelings. So you have no idea how to regulate them. So everything feels life or death. And so I think kind of finding Romeo and Juliet and really grounding it in it being young and really grounding in these are the first time these people are feeling these things. But then also maximizing in every sense, making every artistic decision to be maximal in this film.
Yeah.
It just feels like it's that aspect, like it's growing out of the emotion, it's growing out of the feeling, it's meeting the feelings, if anything. I think it just really, really works.
Yeah, it's incredible. And like some of those scenes, and like, you know, it's Baz, classic Baz, just like visually so ridiculous and over the top and gorgeous and just like orchestrated. And like some of those scenes, like Mercutio and like the little white skirt and top doing his thing with the lipstick and Young Hearts Run Free, like some of those scenes were just like so perfect. And I think, yeah, that sort of combination of those sort of super vibrant, sometimes like quite grimy, like they were in a grimy kind of world, and that kind of smashing that with the script, it just, yeah, that was perfect.
And the great uses of Hawaiian shirts that cinema has ever seen,
They've
I'd
never
say.
looked so good. They'll never look that good again either. I reckon that's probably the top.
I don't think
That's
so.
the peak for Hawaiian shirts.
Yeah, digital photography doesn't quite get them the same way that Baz Luhrmann's celluloid does.
No.
I think as well, like speaking on that, like Young Hearts Run Free, iconic film soundtrack, one of the great mixtapes films have ever received. It had 2 CD releases, a volume 1 and a volume 2 here in Australia. Do you have any favorite songs that kind of come out about this? And how do you think that, I think it's also one of those things, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, of freshening this text up for young people by, instead of having like an orchestral symphonic score, you have got contemporary or heartfelt modern music and like even just like pop, rock, like it's all in there.
Yeah, I think like definitely that's like, yeah, I guess that's the other thing. It's like this visual side, and then super hip and, you know, exciting soundtrack as well. And I remember like one that sticks in my memories, like the Radiohead track. It's like exit music for film or something.
Yes,
Really,
that's
really
it.
sad. And it's like, you know, Leo's just sort of like strutting around on the beach, like looking sad with the sunset behind him. And yeah, like there's like, I remember just sort of like, just every time after seeing that, when I'd hear the song, I just want to cry straight away, just 'cause the film would sort of like hit me in the back of the head.
Yeah, the one for me was, I can't remember how it's used in the film, but I just remember hearing it on the CD so much, was Loveful by the Cardigans,
Yeah.
which is just one of those songs that when I hear it, I go, oh, I remember what it was like to be 8 years old listening to music.
Yeah, you're just straight back there. Just takes you straight back.
Can you talk to me a little bit about like the kind of supporting cast? Were there any of those characters or actors in this film that you think really capture the way of contemporizing Shakespeare through the language that is there, but also making it feel real?
Well, I think the weird thing was at first, like, you're kind of struggling with the language and like trying to put them together. But it really didn't take long for like, I think it was just like minutes. And then all of a sudden, you just kind of forget that they're even sort of using this, old English Shakespearean kind of language. And that was like a really bizarre thing. Like you get to the end of the film, like you've almost just forgotten that it's been in that format. And so I think that was one of the amazing things about it, was that like it just kind of, it was so visually engaging, it pulled you in, that it showed you that like, you can make sense of this stuff, and like it isn't that crazy, like once you sort of see it being acted and see what they're actually talking about. And yeah, so I just thought it all felt real, basically, like once you sort of forgot about the fact they were talking in that way.
Man, you just unlocked a memory for me of watching this for the first time, the exact moment where that works for me. It is, because I remember going, oh, it's kind of cheesy that they're using the old English, like the iambic pentameter. I was like, oh, I don't know. I remember the exact moment where it starts working for me is very early on in the film, where they're kind of like building all the world building aspect of it in this kind of like super cut montagey section. And Brian Dennehy, who plays, I think he plays Juliet's dad in the film, he says, hand me my longsword. And it cuts to like a machine gun. And I think that is the moment where I go, oh, this is funny.
Yeah,
and it dawned on me.
Yeah, well, like there's that great scene right in the beginning where the two young crews are like having the shootout. And, like they just start sort of like rattling off like, like I'll, lay my life down for thee in the house of Capulet or whatever. And it's like all those little sort of great little cuts where it's like cutting to the house symbols, and it just kind of like laid it out a bit clearer for like younger people who might be a bit put off by that kind of thing.
Yeah, it really works. Having that little bit of like Miami, Venice Beach, gangster aesthetic. I think.
Yeah, just Shakespeare, but make it sexy, just
that's
make it sexy.
I mean, they got to do that every time. Kids love sexy Shakespeare. That's what we learn every time one of these comes out.
We could do like Hamlet at the strip club or something. That could be the next.
Okay.
I'm
going to edit that out of the podcast because I think we have a pitch on here right now.
All right. Yeah. Well, maybe I'll work on that.
I don't know. It's already selling in the room. I think it's pretty good. Hamlet, but like Hamlet with a lap dance in it. Now that's something. We got something there.
Yeah. Sexy Hamlet. Just crown and that's it.
That's it, dude. That's it. We're printing money right now. Any final thoughts on Romeo plus Juliet before we move on to your final pick?
No, I think that's probably it. Yeah. I think we covered
That's
everything.
it. We reached it.
Yeah,
we got
perfect.
it. Well, your final weekly choice is actually the third appearance this film has had in a rental combo. Angela White has picked this movie up. Aaron Chen has picked this up.
Cool.
This is my favorite movie of like
really?
one of the last few years. So I will never deny anyone picking this film.
I like you just keep letting people pick it. You're like, yeah, we'll do it again.
Yeah, I gotta talk about it more. They all return it, so it's okay. No one's had too many late fees with this film.
It's fine.
But from the Safdie brothers, you have got Uncut Gems.
Crime.
Yes.
Tell me about Uncut Gems. What is it that sticks with you about this film?
So, like, these are all quite hectic films that I've chosen. I'm just realizing now. And just for the record, I do actually really like also like quite chill, sort of like slow-paced films. But I guess
I mean, you're quite a laid back
I
guy,
was-
I would say. Maybe you get the stresses out from watching these movies.
Yeah, maybe it's like release, but yeah, no, I do like all kinds. But this particular film was just—it's like the perfect example of like a film that just kind of like grabs you really quickly, pulls you in, and then just sort of like drags you along for this crazy ride, and you don't even know like what's sort of happening half time. Then it's done, and you kind of like stop, and it sort of fully submerges you in itself, and it's like. I think not many films can do that, and this is like a perfect example of a film that takes you in. You're in like a totally different world for like that hour and a half, and then just spits you out. You're just like, what just happened? Like, and I think this is the perfect example.
Were you an Adam Sandler fan growing up?
Yeah, yeah, hell yeah. Well, like the like Happy Gilmore and Billy Madison. I think anyone sort of like around our age, like I think everyone saw that and repeated all the stupid jokes like 10,000 times.
Yeah, yeah, definitely movies that shaped my life more than I care to admit.
Yeah. And I mean, like he's definitely had a lot of questionable films over the years, but he's always sort of been a bit of an outlier, and I always like people who are sort of a bit against the grain, or just do their own thing, even if it's quite terrible sometimes. But I think it gives them freedom at least.
I think you're spot on. Like, Adam Sandler is one of my heroes, one of my favorite actors, comic minds, everything. Like, truly one of my greatest influences, Adam Sandler. But I think with this film in particular, the Safdies really understand how to use what is innate in him, like what is his greatest quality, which is this rage. Like, he expresses rage like nobody fucking else.
Yeah.
And I think the way that they were able to do that is his outburst of rage, what has made him beloved for everyone of our generation, basically. And I think putting him in high stress situations in this and not allowing him to break very often. So it's almost like the rage gets trapped in this character of Howard Ratner, just gets trapped inside him. Every now and then it expresses itself and comes out. But it's like this sickening quality that you're just watching him with like this amount of high stress and rage just stuck underneath his skin, trapped in his cavities and stuff. It just works so well.
Yeah, no, you just start sweating. Like, I think it was about like a third of the way through, and I was just kind of sitting there. I was like, oh shit, I'm like actually sweating. Like, what's happening? What's going on?
It's one of the great empathetic experiences watching this film. Like, you can't help but sweat watching this movie.
So too intense.
And I think as well, like, one of the great things about this film that I think gives it its unique personality, its unique quality, is its score by Daniel Lopatin, aka One O Tricks Point Never, OPN, because it's like not the typical score one would see to a film like this. Like, it's not grungy, it's not grimy, it's cosmic, it's kind of ethereal. And I think that kind of it captures the feeling that you get when you look into the opal towards the start of this film, like the journey you feel, that cosmic journey, and it kind of makes it have this a quality that transcends over the film and gives it kind of like this: you're on the outside looking in, and then you're stuck in the film as well. Can you tell me about the score and like how that affects you, and like what are the qualities you see in that score?
Yeah, well, I think like it's it's so sort of beautiful at times and like spacey and dreamy that like, and like it's there right at the start that like that's kind of the sound of like the happy place that he wants to get to. It's like that is like what he's trying to get to, but it's like, again, with the contrasting, like contrasting works so well in everything, where you take two unexpected things and put them in the room, just like wait and see what happens, and like with that beauty and sort of cosmic light sort of score, and then you have this completely claustrophobic, stressful, sort of like violent visual and story. It's like, again, that they're just going to like rub up against each other and like make the magic. And yeah, I think it was just like great call to like go with something like that rather than like a heavy rock thing or something.
Yeah, or even like that kind of like electronic score or that kind of like, you could see that kind of working, like synthesizers could really work for something like this. But I think having something that's totally different to what you expect for it, it's like almost a score to a fantasy film, the way that it kind of uses like everything from synthesizers to it twinkles, this score, which is just so unexpected.
Yeah, and I think like it's like, also it's like that guy is in like a fantasy world, and like he's tracing a fantasy. He's like got that greed and that always in pursuit of this perfection, and always trying to like make the next big deal, the next and the next. And it's like that's the sound of heaven that he'll never get to. Well, maybe he does in the end, but it's like
no, I don't reckon he makes it.
He probably doesn't go there. Nah,
but I think you're right. It is the sound of something spectral from something beyond.
Mm-hmm. And then like with the realness of that film, like also the Safdie brothers' other film is Good Time.
Yeah, Good Time.
I really liked that too, and that was like similar kind of, masterfully just fucking like putting you in that box and giving you that claustrophobic feeling. And it's also just like it feels so real. Their films, like it feels like just a little slice of life, and it's just like I think that's probably why it does it so well, because it's so sort of hyper realistic. It's like it sucks you in, and that like adds to that kind of sort of the way that it can really box you in, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's that casting the Safdies do so well. Beyond like going, okay, how can we use Adam Sandler? How can we use Rob Pattinson? How can we use like these cultural icons and be able to do something different with them? It's their casting in like the found New York City faces and weird personalities. They go, this person should live in this world, or this person does live in this world. Like in Uncut Gems, the ones that I'm drawn to the most are like these two weird like old identical twins that are like I think in reality they're like celebrity signature collectors, but where they're just like keep hassling Adam Sandler, or Adam Sandler keeps hassling them. It's like, how do you find these guys, and then how do you go, I'm going to put this guy in a movie?
Yeah, like they must just have the trick to it, because it's like, I guess being in film, you're probably always with casting, you're trying to like, in your mind, you're making an active decision to find someone who looks like a real person like this. But I know maybe like you just have to think about it less and just like literally just grab the people off the street. And like, I think there's lots of good examples of that,
Yeah, exactly. It's that thing of, well, it's like, yeah, they look like real people because they are real people, but also these look like fantasy creations, a lot of the guys they're fighting in this film.
Well, it's like, that's the thing. It's like, it's almost so real. It's like life's stranger than fiction, it's like, it's like, even if you're trying to find the weirdest looking guy that you might find on the street at 3 a.m. in New York, if you walk out on the street at 3 a.m. in New York, like, you're going to find someone weirder looking, even if you've looked through 1,000 casting sheets or something.
Yeah, exactly, man. They captured this great, like you said, slice of life, finding a corner of the world and bringing it to life and presenting it to the rest of the world. It just really works. I think one final thing I'll say before we kind of move on to the end of this program is I'm looking at Daniel Lopatin's filmography, like the films that he scored, and this is a absolute winning list of films. You've got Uncut Gems. He also did Good Time. He did The Bling Ring alongside Brian Reitzel, but also this great like Australian co-production film called Partisan with Vincent Cassel that if you have not seen, I think is right up your alley as well.
I'm going to write this down.
That's a little bonus recommendation for you.
Yeah, nice. All right,
you have got the pen and pad out. Yeah, Partisan from 2015.
Okay, nice. All right, beautiful.
Staff pick.
But keep that pen and pad ready, brother, because we're at that staff pick recommendation section of the show. Okay, so I'm going to fire off a big one for you right now.
Oh, beautiful.
So I was looking through your choices and thinking about them, and like aesthetic is like such a strong quality across like all the films you're looking at, like very strong visual aesthetic. And I also was like, oh, okay, but you've got this vibrancy of either these West Coast or kind of beachy feelings with Substance and Romeo plus Juliet. But I was like, there's something about that urban quality of Uncut Gems that's undeniable. Like, it's hard not to use that as the one to jump off from. And the other thing that I was really thinking about, all these films have a strong sonic and aural aesthetic as well. And I really want to find you something that has all of these qualities together. And I kept on coming back to this one film because of the sonic aspect of it. And also thinking about Confidence Man, I wanted to give you something that has like this, I don't know how else to say it, but there is a rare thing where this film that I'm about to recommend you is the only fiction narrative film with a score soundtrack by, in my opinion, the greatest dance music producer in the history of mankind, Nile Rodgers of Chic.
Oh, yeah.
And so that is where I'm going with this one. Yeah. This is a film called Alphabet City from 1984.
Crime.
Have you heard of Alphabet
City? No, I haven't. No.
This is also a little snapshot of New York City that has long since vanished. It's kind of like in that fun city era, but I'll give you I'll read the back of the box for you, if you will.
Yeah, please.
So Johnny, Vincent Spano, controls the drug trade in New York's rough Alphabet City neighborhood, as long as his mob bosses let him. But when he refuses to follow orders to torch the tenement building he grew up in, Johnny puts himself and his loved ones in their unforgiving crosshairs. Norway filmmaker Amos Poe's neo-noir cult favorite oozes 80s neon-lit punk tinge style. And it's just, so already I think that's kind of ticking a few boxes,
That sounds great. Yeah. What is it? 80s lit neo-noir punk? Yeah, I'm in.
All of those
things I like.
And I love that kind of like neon noir feeling. There's something about that that I think just translates so cinematically in that kind of like when we jump to color, but when we're still kind of in celluloid before we move digital, that neon noir just really works.
Yeah. Definitely.
For me, this feels like the intersection of a lot of things. Like it feels like a version like Scorsese's Mean Streets with its like youthful gangster worldview, and it kind of has that one crazy night in New York feeling as well, like something like the After Hours or even the Warriors have. But then there's this kind of like good-natured tone and color, like the vibrancy of it that feels a bit like, Breakin' and Breakin' 2 and Electric Boogaloo. Like there's something in that space. Like there is breakdancing in this movie as well.
Those breakdancing films, the 80s and 90s. Yeah, I love those things.
It's got a little bit of that going for it. Kind of has a bit of that danger of Uncut Gems or even like John Cassavetes' Gloria. And there's this overwhelming and emotive, colorful lighting that feels kind of like in line with The Substance in a way, for sure, and those kind of more modern art housey crime films like Nicholas Winding Refn's Drive and Neon Demon, all of those things. And a lot of that comes from the cinematographer of this film. It's the innovative, vividly colorful work of Oliver Wood, who was the cinematographer for Miami Vice, the TV show.
Oh, yeah, nice.
So you're getting a little bit of that Romeo plus Juliet there as well.
Cool. Oh, perfect. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to sink into
My
this.
pleasure, man. And I'll say the era for Nile Rodgers on this, it is while he's making Madonna's Like a Virgin. So it's a little bit of that kind of post-disco pop soundtrack. It just works so well. I think he only ever did the soundtrack for one other movie, which was a documentary about Black Panthers. So this is super unique.
I love Nile and I love Chic. So that sounds perfect. Thank you so much for that.
Oh. Consider me nailing it today. I destroyed the choice today.
Perfect. I'll be waiting by the letterbox.
Oh, thank you. And don't forget to return the movies, brother. Please don't forget.
No. I'm not one of those guys. I wouldn't do that.
Oh, thank you so much, Sugarbone. It's been a pleasure having you in the store. You're going home with The Substance, Romeo plus Juliet, Uncut Gems, and a recommendation from me, Alphabet City.
Hell yeah. Thank you so much. It's been so fun.
My pleasure. See you soon, man.
Great. Thank you. See ya.
The last video store.
Thank you for checking out The Last Video Store with me, your host, Alexei Toliopoulos. Please subscribe, follow, share the podcast amongst your friends as well. We're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TikTok, Instagram, Last Video Store Batuta. So check us out and share us in all of those places. And if you want your own bespoke customized recommendation from me, you can submit an online order at any of those places in a comment, in a 5-star review with your weeklies and your new release pick. And I will come to you like I did at the top of this episode and give you a recommendation based on your taste. So thank you very much. Love you. Love movies.